How you doing today, Mike?
Yeah.
Good, man. So I'm gonna start with the two on top because sometimes when we start with the sides and then we blend it into the top, after we cut the top, we gotta blend all this again, and there's like that little ridge right here. So I'm gonna start with the top, we'll take that down with the two, and then we'll start on the sides, and that should blend in without having to do any extra work. And I got the Gamma boosted clippers here with the stretch bracket on here. These are my favorite clippers right now anyways. So you want it right above the ear, so keep it low. And we're doing all the way down to the skin, right? So completely smooth, no hair at all. So the number 2 is a 1/4 inch. Is that okay? For the top? Okay, cool. So I'm doing overlapping sections like this so I can hopefully avoid missing hairs on the top. So what I mean by overlapping is instead of doing one big chunk like that, I'm picking up I'm going over a little bit of the previous section whenever I move the clipper to the side a little bit. So I'm gonna start going in different directions now so that I don't miss any hairs. When you get home after a haircut, you ever get home and there's after you take a shower, there's some hairs. So that's why I try to go over this a lot in a lot of different directions, and I'm pushing down a little bit harder than I would if I was doing the sides to try to get those hairs to lift up. And one of the things I like to do to help prevent those hairs from getting left behind is I'll take a comb like this, I'll put it right in front of the guard, and that's gonna help lift those hairs up so that the guard can catch it and cut the hair, so it looks like that. The difference between the skin fades are, so low would be right at or just above the ear, mid would be right here to this, what I call to the TPP, the temple peak point right here. If I brought the skin up to that line, that would be mid, and then above that would be high. I'm just gonna keep going over the top a couple more times just to make sure everything is all even, especially here in the front since you got some different directions. So to start the low skin fade, I'm gonna take the skin with these clippers up to right above the ear or right at the ear. These are the Andes Supra ZR clippers with the 5/0 blade. This is gonna get almost down to skin by itself, and then I'm gonna use the shaver to get it down even closer. I'm folding your ear out of the way because sometimes I'm seeing barbers, they're cutting somebody's hair and they're banging their clipper on their ear the whole time. As a client, that would annoy me, so that's why I like to fold people's ears out of the way. If you would ask me for a low drop fade, what I would have did is I would have dropped this line down a little further in the back. It's still gonna dip down a little bit, but not as much, not as dramatic as a drop fade. So that way the fade in the back lasts you a little longer. But some guys prefer to have a drop fade, so there's a little bit more hair in the back. But you got a nice shaped head, so I think you can get away with not having a drop fade. The back of my head's flat, so as my wife says, I didn't get enough tummy time as a baby, so the back of my head's pretty flat. So I'd probably get a drop fade to compensate for that. And this brush that I have in my hand, this is a Scalp Master soft bristle brush. This is actually a clipper cleaning brush, but these bristles are a lot softer. So you want to make sure you get some of these that have the soft black bristles, not the white nail brushes, because those will really irritate the client's skin. In the back, we're just gonna connect these two sides here and double check that everything's even before we move on. That's pretty even to me. I'm gonna use these, this is actually the UV shaver. So it has this UV light built into the lid. So when you put it on, it actually starts disinfecting the shaver. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, use the link in the bio if you want one. So other than that, it's just pretty much the same shaver. So I'm gonna start by balding out that area that I just did with the clipper. So now that I got that step done, did the two on top, did the bald it out the bottom. So I'm gonna go back to my Gamma clippers. I'm gonna go with the lever fully open like this. I'm gonna create the next line, and this is what's gonna start transitioning into the top. So I'm gonna do the lever open, do that step, and then do the one open, one close, half, 1 1/2, and that should blend into the top. How long do you think this haircut should take, Mike?
Like 30 to 45.
30 to 45 minutes for a low skin fade? I agree. I mean, it's an opinion, you know, There's definitely barbers that can do it faster, and there's definitely barbers that are gonna take an hour, hour and a half. But in my opinion, this haircut, for me, should take 30 minutes. All right, so that was the lever all the way open. And this is, keep in mind, this is a stretch bracket. So I got a little bit more room to play with in this scenario. And I don't have the click lever here. This is a floating lever. So I'm gonna go down a little closer and I'm gonna start working just underneath that last line I just did. Being careful not to go all the way to that line, because that's just gonna raise the fade higher. But I'm basically working my way down to this initial guideline that I created until it's gone. So that line should start to get lighter and lighter until you can't see it anymore. So what I like to do is remove bulk and I fade down. And there's so many different ways of cutting hair out there. There's really not like a right or wrong way. That's just the way I do it. Alright, so now I got the lever all the way closed and I'm just working on that first line that we created with the clippers on the side. I try to get all the initial steps done, and then I go back and I try to detail at the end. So there may still be some imperfections when I move on, but the idea is I try to get through all the steps as fast as possible in the beginning. That way I can spend most of the time during the haircut at the end doing the detail work. And because he's getting a low skin fade and a 2 on top, like I have so much room to blend on the side. That's why you know, I'm giving myself pretty big guidelines in this case. So I have a lot of room to get from one step to the next. And I don't really have to worry about running out of room. So that was the number 1 guard with lever fully open. And with this stretch bracket, that's gonna add a little bit of length. And I'm gonna close it now all the way. Start working on this line now that we created with the half guard, or the half, which is the lever all the way open with no guard. I love these clippers. I try not to use them. I try to like give them a break and let them recharge. And I use the other ones just to let them charge. But I love these clippers. Just like with the last step, this line is gonna start to get lighter and lighter until it's almost gone. But it's not gonna be fully erased because I gotta use the half guard to get in between the 1 and the half with the lever all the way open, no guard. Now I'm gonna switch to the half guard. And this is the half premium guard. So the other guards, like these are the stock guards that come with the clipper normally. They're pretty flimsy. I like to use the premium guards whenever I can. The plastic's a little bit more rigid and it has this metal clip on it. We're just gonna keep the guard from popping off the clipper. And I got the lever halfway open now. It's not really gonna be making a lot of noise because this is definitely like more of a detail type of step, but that's what you want to listen to when you're doing this type of haircut or when you're getting this type of haircut. You want to hear a little bit of hair being cut. And one thing I do when I'm trying to be precise, when I'm usually fading, I'm holding the clipper like this with the thumb on top, and that's like 90% of the time. But as I'm doing this detail work, you'll notice that I'm actually changing the position of how I hold the clipper. So I'm usually like this, but when I'm trying to be detailed, I'll actually change where I put my, I guess my pointer finger, and I'll put it right here. And that's just for more stability. So that way I can just use the corners. I just find it easier that way. I'm gonna switch to the 1.5 guard now. Since we did a 2 on top, I did this line with a 1 open. So what's gonna get in between is the 1.5, and this is also a premium guard. That's gonna start to tie in the sides of the top, and then from there on out, it's just detail work. So I finished all my steps now. I did the 2 on top first, I did the skin fade on the sides. Now it's time to do the cleanup work, right? Because like I said in the beginning, we want to get through all the initial steps, and now it's time to do the detail work. So I think when you're doing a detail work, it's really important to use the mirror, which is why sometimes the barber's turning you, right, during the haircut. Some barbers can just walk around the haircut the whole time and just keep you like this. Me personally, you know, I like to use the mirror and light to help check for imperfections. So I'm gonna be turning you a bit throughout the haircut so I can keep checking my work, because the mirror just gives me a different perspective. Because sometimes just looking straight on, it looks good, but if I look in the mirror, I see an imperfection. I'm like, oh, okay, we're not done yet. I'm gonna use the brush. I'm working with a shorter length here, so I'm gonna use the brush. So that was the 1.5. I'm gonna switch to the 1 now. You start with the lever open. So I'm basically doing the same exact steps that I did in reverse. So I started at the bottom and went up into the top from there. And now I'm starting with the top and working my way down. This is basically like cross-checking. Same thing, almost the same thing I did with the top, where I'm like went over it multiple times to make sure that there's no hairs left behind. I'm gonna do the same thing but on the sides. I just have to do it with different guards since it's not all the same length. Man, I used to do CrossFit before I came to work, and that was a bad idea. There's some times where I had to my arm was so tired I had to switch to my left hand just to give my right arm a break. I mean, a lot of it's like the chair height too, because if your elbows are here all day, you're not gonna, you're gonna be dead by the end of the day. So that's why I have him right here, so my elbows can be down the whole time. And so it's not as tiring, the shoulders. So I'm gonna be stretching your skin a bit, just because it's gonna help the clipper cut a bit better. So now I'm gonna switch to the half guard. So I was just working with the one. I'm gonna switch to the half again. Start halfway open. So if your haircut takes longer than 30 minutes or so, it's probably because that barber is struggling to get the line out. It's just because they didn't give themselves enough room to get from skin to the next step. So they keep cutting into their guide, which keeps raising the fade higher, which means they gotta start over again. Either that or the clippers aren't set properly, so these are zero gap. So I'm gonna go over the top again. This is a 2. I'm gonna do the same thing I did earlier and just make sure that I'm not leaving any hairs behind. So I'm gonna use these clippers. These are the Babyliss Gold FX ones. I like to use these when doing lineups in the front because it has a little bit of a wider blade, so you just get more work done at once rather than the other trimmers that I normally use. I'm using a finger for stability. I'm also, if you notice, when I put the trimmer down, I'm paying attention to the way that the hair is laying and the direction it's growing in, and I swipe against the hair growth. See, this hair is growing this way, so when I put the trimmer down, just a little bit, I'm just gonna slightly swipe it against the direction of the hair growth, just like that. So when I lined up this side, I pointed the trimmer, the corner of the trimmer to the corner of your eyebrow. So in order to get the other side, the same thing, I'm just gonna make sure that I point at the same place on the other side, and that should get it symmetrical. Because that's really all a good lineup is it's just symmetrical, right? The lines are pointing to the same spot, everything's straight. Some barbers like to stand in front like this, which is fine. I think either way, you need to be able to look straight on. So I prefer to stand to the side and have them turn so that way I can look at it from straight on. So I'm starting in the middle because that's my guide and working my way out from there. We'll clean up this, what they call the C-cup area, which is just this part of the hairline right here, where the corner of your hairline connects to your sideburn. That's the C-cup area. And while I got these in my hand, I'm just gonna go ahead and try to knock out any lines that I might see. I'm gonna turn you into the mirror so we can check the hairline. I'm just gonna rub my finger over it to make sure that we don't accidentally take off any moles that you wanna keep. I usually leave some hairs behind on purpose around the ears. Not because I think it looks good, but because I've just from the past, I've kind of irritated or even cut clients' skin right here, where the ear connects to the head, that's a very sensitive area. So if there's a hair that's growing very close to the ear, I'll just leave it and I'll save it for this step, so that I'll just use it and I'll get it with the razor. So I always try to double check after a skin fade behind the ears or around the ears, to make sure that there's no hair left behind. So I like to have the headrests right where your shoulders are, just so that you can lean your head back, but also if in the case if I was trimming your beard, you would be able to stretch your chin if the headrest is low. All right, so here I'm just gonna get this hairline, basically follow what we already did, not push it back any further, and I'm gonna stretch the skin apart like this. Notice I'm using a finger for stability because it's really hard to be, especially in the morning when you've had too much caffeine, it's really hard to be precise without stabilizing your hand, whether you're using trimmer, a razor. But I used to drink way too much caffeine back in the day, and I kind of learned that I had to do that, especially in the morning. You gotta stabilize your hand, bro. You're gonna freak people out. All right.